Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us during Mobility Week 2020. I'm really glad to see how many people showed up, even though this is very different than what we're used to as far as a virtual platform instead of usually meeting in person. But it's nice to know that everybody's interested and everybody's active, although the coronavirus has put a little bit of a dent in our plans. Today's presenters are Aaron Emmons from Kimley Horn and Associates and Wabette Hay from FDOT District 4. And today's topic is the multimodal scoping checklist. I will pass it on over to Aaron and Wabette. Wabette, if you'd like to say a few words about yourself.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wabette Hay with the Florida Department of Transportation in the Office of Modal Development. I am the multimodal coordinator, and I'm also the project manager within our district for the multimodal scoping checklist.
And I'm Aaron Emmons. I'm with Kimley Horn, and I'm the project consultant assisting the District 4 with this project.
So we're going to be going over the multimodal process and just give you a brief overview of what the process entails. We're also going to show you, we did a bunch of updates when I took over because of the old process. We're just going to talk a little bit about that. And then we have a live demo for you, which is going to go over the new D4 modal viewer. So what is the multimodal checklist process? So the multimodal checklist has been around for quite some years, about 10 years it's been in existence. And what this is actually giving the municipalities, the MPOs, all these different agencies that we coordinate with on different projects an opportunity to talk about what issues they're having in their community and what they would like to see added to the design that is going on in that neighborhood in that time frame. So it's a process. It's give you an opportunity to go more into detail in the early process of the design by adding in criteria or adding in certain things that you would not have had an opportunity to add in. So, for example, so if we're doing a project in relation to a triple R, and you need to have a new sidewalk installed, this is an opportunity for you to go and fill out that documentation and provide us the details that we're looking for to add in that sidewalk. Now, not every suggestion that you provide us is going to get implemented, but that's okay, because to be honest, that gives us an opportunity to create new projects if those projects cannot include those suggestions that you provided to us. Next slide. Mm-hmm. So why is the multimodal checklist so important? It's important just because we're aiming to actually go through the complete initiative plans, in the sense that we're making sure that we add in any complete initiative into our design, into the design criteria. Now, why is that important? As I mentioned earlier, it's important because it gives you an opportunity early in the process and before design even happens to actually let us know what you need in your area, wherever that is. So that way we can facilitate the actual improvements, working with the design team, we work in the design PM to get that done. Now, when I took over, we had a bunch of questions that were on there, and we looked and we talked to a bunch of the design PM about what are they looking for, what information we could provide to them that would be more relevant to them. So we went through a process where we met with a few of them from the different sections within the OMD in the DOT office, and they gave us some really beautiful insight in the sense that, you know, what is important to them, what information is necessary for them to go through the process and add stuff in. More detailed, specific information is kind of what they're looking for. So we went through and we revamped the question. Aaron's going to talk a little bit more about that in the next segment, but this is these are the people that we are talking to on a regular basis about, including stuff into the design. And so their input was very important in the process. Now, these are the agencies that we coordinate with in regards to the multimodal process. We actually talk to people within the OMD office. We talk to all of the MPOs, the TPOs. We also talk to all of the transit agencies, because transit is an intricate part of the multimodal process. We also talk to the school board, just in case we are within the border of the school zone, to make sure that we are not impeding the sidewalks where the kids need to walk to and from home, or making sure if there is a missing sidewalk, that we can be aware of that information and we can actually incorporate it in the process. We also talk to the county, which is all 5 counties within the District 4 borders, and all of them and the municipalities within our system. And you can see we actually coordinate with a lot of individuals. So if we had to talk to each person, it would take a substantial amount of time. So the multimodal process gives us an opportunity to actually reach out to these individuals and get their feedback early in the process, so we can actually include that information within the process of the design. I'm going to hand it over to Erin.
Great. Yeah, and as Wabet had pointed out, like the coordination efforts associated with this process is robust and constantly changing, either with staffing or with the just magnitude of 5 different counties that projects will fall in at all times throughout the year. So last year, just to put this in perspective, over 74 projects were evaluated through the multimodal scoping checklist. And as Wabet had pointed out, that's can go up to over 100 stakeholders that could be involved in that coordination effort. Now, to set up those meetings one-on-one, we'd still be talking to them about last year's projects. By making this process an online process and setting up this communication, this line of communication in the very beginning, before projects go to design, it allows us to not only strengthen our community engagement aspect, but also allow the project PMs and the communities that they'll be coordinating with establish that relationship right at the beginning. And so as we move through this process, we'll talk about what things we have advanced with the online capabilities, but also some of the things that we've streamlined that actually has opened up new opportunities, which Bet already spoke about, in regards to if projects aren't able to be implemented as part of the multimodal scoping checklist, how that information is being used to develop new opportunities and new projects potential that funding could be identified for. And this year, with some of these changes that we've made with an online process, we've already increased our outreach and our community engagement by 18%. So one of the main things that we changed as part of this process was the original process engaged each stakeholder with a multimodal scoping checklist in a Word document format. At the start of every project, we make a list of all the stakeholders that you can see here on the left that are associated with that project location. So we look at the project. If it's located in a specific city, that city will be reached out to, that city that the county is in, and so on and so forth. So that one specific project will have up to 8 or 9 stakeholders involved with that. Each of those stakeholders get a customized multimodal scoping checklist that's designed to ask questions specific to their agency, such as transit. What are the bus stops? What are some of the high ridership areas? And what are those areas that need to be kept open during construction? All of those things that are ideal and critical to know at the beginning that can save the money and frustration later when the project actually begins. So, all right, well, we've reached out to all these stakeholders. What the heck do we do with all that information? Well, each word that's typed and each word that's submitted, we read and we summarize to actually provide a report to the design PM. And that information is consolidated into 3 categories. Information, such as, the community has a really strong, public outreach efforts within this area. You need to coordinate with the homeowner association. That type of information is great for the design PM to know before starting a project, but it's not necessarily going to impact the scoping phase. The action items that come out of this are those follow-up action items. The design PM during construction needs to reach out to transit to make sure that there is a coordinator involved so that we can reroute. That would be one of those actions that would need to be documented early on in the process so that those steps can be made at when project implementation occurs. And then those requests, those are the star projects. Those are the things that the communities really want to make sure are included in the scope, and those are what are proposed to the design PM, such as, you know, you're doing a triple R project or resurfacing, or maybe you're incorporating a bicycle and pedestrian project along a corridor, and our sidewalks, we may have those in the community, but they really need to be replaced. The design PM during site reviews could probably identify this, but by communicating that ahead of time, they can be prepared to have the right people at that site visit or ask the right questions to the community. So again, saving time early on to understand what the community needs are. Well, part of the biggest change that we did as part of this process is moving all of this to an online process. Again, the same process is followed in regards to identifying those stakeholders on who would be engaged with at each individual project level. But now we've made it into an online modal viewer and online submittal form. So instead of sending out 100+ Word documents to the agency and then having that information come back in multiple formats and multiple either a PDF or Word document, now we have it all in a database. And that database can easily be sorted, filtered, and organized in a way that can be communicated back more effectively, as well as tied back to the project easier. So we're going to step through that live demo of how this process works, and also the additional information that is now being able to be provided to the municipalities and to the stakeholders as they're filling out these multimodal scoping checklists. Same process on the back end in regards to every survey that's submitted back is being read, and it's being organized into those 3 categories: information, action, and request. And that information is getting sent back to the design PM. So why did the submittal process change? Well, as Wabette pointed out, this process is really critical in regards to saving the department time and money, but also, again, strengthening that relationship within the communities and making sure that the project priorities and objectives of complete street initiatives are being met and also being accounted for at the start of the project. This process change of even just taking the form-based process to an online allows for multiple agencies to now have representatives from different departments submit easier and all be able to see the same information at once. Having things in a GIS platform in an online interactive map also allows local governments the ability to review the same information that FDOT and other local stakeholders will be looking at that may have inconsistencies if done on their own, or be looking at information that they have saved on their local drives. An example for this would be maybe a local municipality has very detailed sidewalk information or has their capital improvements identified on a GIS layer or on other maps, but the design PM doesn't. So when the local municipality or the local stakeholder is filling out that survey, they may be referring to data that the design PM doesn't have access to. So now when they use this online system, they know exactly what the design PM would have access to, is looking at, and they can also fill in the gaps by either providing that additional information, screenshots, photos, maps themselves, or even the data layers to be assessed and reviewed so that everybody's starting at the same place. The online process also reduces the production needs. So the preparation time associated with each of those individual Word documents has been removed, and also the consolidation of that information is a lot more effective and efficient on the back end because everything's stored in a table database that, again, can be filtered, organized, and summarized for those 3 information, action, and request priorities that it goes to the design PM. So again, effectiveness or efficiencies with the recording allows us also to identify those projects that may not have been able to be implemented into the scope for this specific project needs, but we can also track where that project and who submitted it so that future opportunities can be coordinated and opportunities can be shared in the coming time frame. So let's go ahead and jump into that live demo of what the process actually looks like. So in regards to the online multi-view or modal viewer, this is an online platform public facing. You guys can access it yourself as well. We can provide a copy of that link as it was in the presentation. When you first access the site, you'll get a splash screen here that it describes the actual tool and what its uses are. So you just push OK. And then you are free to explore the information. All the projects that you see within the District 5 area are all the projects that are currently under review or available for the design or in the process of the multimodal scoping checklist or into the design phase now. When a municipality is given a project to review, they can actually come up here and either search by address or by location, but specifically they're going to look for the FM number that is assigned for that project. So I'm going to type in an example here and show some of those efficiencies. As a stakeholder is typing in the project that's been identified for them to review, you can see that all the projects that would be available to search are coming up as options, and then that stakeholder can just select the project of interest. For this specific example, it's going to be, it's located in Broward County. And again, what's great about this process is you have all of these available data sources at your fingertips. So one of the things I want to point out is when you first zoom out, you have the flexibility of using your mouse to zoom in and out the same way you would Google Maps. But what you don't have on using a Google Maps is all the localized data that you can turn on and off to do your assessment, but also to understand the project area in more detail. So for the project example that I've got highlighted on the screen, you can see that it's got 3 segments. The first thing that someone would probably want to do is find out what city this is located in. And so through all the data layers, and I'm just going to scroll slowly through so you can see the magnitude of information that's available on here, from municipality boundaries to crash data to freight route information, traffic count information, as well as land use. And we also have other information that's crowdsourced, such as Strava data, which is actually gathered from cyclists and runners who record their data through mobile apps. So if we come up here to our boundary files, we know that the location is in Broward County. So I can turn on in my municipalities and I can find out where this project is located. Now from this map, I can click on the boundary and see that the project is actually located in Lauderhill. And so the multimodal scoping checklist would go out to the local municipality of Lauderhill, the stakeholders for them, but we would also send it out to the adjacent municipality because it is on that border of the 2 municipalities. So Lauderdale Lakes would also get this review. And as a Lauderdale Lakes employee, they may question, well, this project isn't even located in my jurisdiction. Why am I doing this review? Again, that's what this process allows for. It's an easier way for other, even adjacent communities to provide feedback that maybe there's projects that are occurring within their jurisdiction that could potentially impact or support the types of projects that are recommended within Lauderhill. So again, collaborative efforts, because we all know that if we all traveled within just our boundaries, it would be a very small community. So projects impact all of us, and having that collaborative effort from the beginning is beneficial. So continuing on, another great thing that would be helpful is to know what kind of actual land uses and information I can get from the map even before I turn on any of the other layers. So if I turn off my boundaries, now I know where the city is located. One of the other options I have is actually changing the base map in the back. So right now I have the streets on, and if I come to this 3rd icon at the top, I have a selection of all of these different map backgrounds that will allow me to change the background and make it more interactive for myself to do a review. So if I click on imagery, I can now see that the projects are in a location that's got both residential and commercial types of uses associated with it. And if I wanted to zoom in, I could also find out some more information regarding sidewalks and infrastructure. But sometimes aerials don't always tell us everything. So I'm going to go back to my layers list, and I'm going to look at some of the other layers that would be available that I would want to look at for the multimodal scoping checklist initiatives, again, for complete streets improvements. So if I would come down here and I'd want to identify maybe potentially where my crash data is, or look at adding on, pedestrian information. So I'm going to scroll down to the school information. So let's see what's going on around my project sites. I can turn on schools, and I can see now quickly that there's 4 schools that are in close proximity to this project location. That would be important to know, especially when talking about types of improvements that would support people walking or biking to school. As I look at some of the other layers that are available, again, we've got transit opportunities. So if I turn on my transit route, and bear with me, it's a little bit of delay. I can also see that within my project area, there are several bus routes along that area. So obviously transit is one of our stakeholders already, so this would be great information for them to be able to give feedback as to if there's any route changes or any bus stop improvements that would be necessary or needed within this area. And they also have the bus stop layer here as well. So these are just a few examples of, again, how this information can be utilized by the stakeholders to provide feedback and information. So we've talked about our layer list. We've talked about how to change the base map. In the layers that I've turned on, this first tab here is actually the legend. So as I add and turn on and off different layers, this legend will dynamically update to show you what those different features are that you have displayed on the map. I want to also point out the other example I had mentioned earlier about when local municipalities may have, or local stakeholders may have data that's not shown on this map, but they're using as part of their assessment. You also have the ability to add data. Now, when you add the information, it's not going to be publicly viewed. It's only going to be saved locally for your eyes to be able to see. But this is a great opportunity for, if there's information that you'd like the design PM to know from localized data, you'd be able to add it here and actually use the print screen and the print options to attach that as part of your multimodal scoping checklist survey. So there's several different ways in which you can add data layers. Some of those layers can be added whether it be through searching ArcGIS Online, publicly available search layers, whether it be floodplain information or wetlands information, anything that's already publicly available. You can also add through URL. Now, for those of you that are familiar with the ArcGIS Online published map services or any published map services on the web, this is where you would actually add the link to the URL of that published map service. And if for those of you that are unfamiliar with anything that I've just explained in regards to adding data, and you're just familiar with shapefiles or KMZ or even the a table or in the CSV file, you also have that option to upload it there too. So there's definitely a range of different ways in which information can be uploaded. And again, when you add data on this screen, it's only viewable, it's only visible to you, and you have the option to do screenshots or print that using the print option and attach it with the survey. One of the other functions that has been useful to some of our stakeholders is also this bookmark tool. Now, the bookmark is exactly what it is. It bookmarks that exact location. So we already have preloaded bookmarks for a county overview. So if I were to say add, it's going to bookmark the zoom in the location that I have right now. So we'll call this test. And we'll just, there we go. and enter that. And so I'm going to go ahead and push Broward County, and we're going to zoom out to the whole county. And if I go back to my test bookmark, it will zoom back to my project location. So if you're reviewing several projects, or maybe this becomes your favorite website and you want to search it for other purposes other than just the multimodal scoping checklist, you can bookmark several places in which you want to continue to go back and review or look at specific information that's associated with that. So, and again, when you create a bookmark, don't worry, everybody in the world is not going to see it, only you. So if you try to log on to the site and look for my test bookmark, you're not going to see it. It's only available to me on this end. The measuring tool is also another function that we have added as the multimodal scoping checklist process, because this is where our local stakeholders can really get into the weeds with identifying their project needs to us. So let's use that sidewalk example for a moment. So I'm going to zoom into this project location, and I apologize for a little bit of the lag. Just a second. And so one of the things that we've heard and we've gotten back from our stakeholders is before with the Word document, you didn't have a robust online mapping application. We just were providing PDF versions of the study area and maybe available information. There wasn't that ability to zoom in and really understand the project corridor. So if a design PM or a stakeholder were to look at this, they'd say, yeah, there's existing sidewalk. But the local stakeholders that are engaged in this multimodal scoping checklist, they're the experts. They're going to know what's going on in their community, and that's what we want to get from this process. So what we would expect from those submitting a multimodal scoping checklist is that detail that only they would be able to share and would know because it's their community and it's their backyard. So using the measuring tool is actually one of those great tools that allows for them to be more specific about their community needs. If they say, I need sidewalk on the south sides of the corridor, okay, well, how much of that sidewalk do you need and where exactly is it located? So this allows them to identify either through different with feet, miles, different measuring units, and click on the map and actually communicate specifically how much sidewalk we're talking about. So now they can, in their multimodal scoping checklist, tell the design PM exactly what they're looking for and say that they need 1.3 miles of sidewalk on the south side of the corridor starting at point A to point B and specifying those exact street locations. This is the same in regards to maybe the implementation of lighting projects and knowing where that pedestrian lighting or any type of other site-specific information is necessary. You can actually identify point locations and by clicking on the map, be able to tell them exactly the lat-long location of that project need. So you can just copy and paste that information into the design, into the multimodal scoping checklist, and there's no question about what that project objective is that's being communicated to the design PM. Again, the more information that's provided, the better chances that that project will, have life after it's been submitted. And we already spoke about some of the printing options that can be leveraged not only to communicate to the design PM as part of this process, but again, this is a public-facing modal viewer or interactive map that can be used for other project types as well. With all this information that's available at your fingertips, this can be used as a tool for you in your community to share ideas and to collaborate locally with other stakeholders, even outside of this process, to keep the conversation going. And then we've talked about and we've referenced since the start of this presentation, the multimodal scoping checklist. So what the heck is that? And we haven't even shown you what that is. So we've told you all the tools that we're expecting our stakeholders to use when responding to these multimodal scoping checklists. And as we pointed out, each checklist and each agency is built specifically to gather the information associated with that agency. So if you click on the far right button, the info tab, This is going to give you more in-depth information about the whole multimodal scoping checklist process, as well as a list of the tools and layers that I referenced earlier in the presentation. And it also gives you a cheat sheet or a user guide on how to use this tool. So if you are super excited or you haven't heard anything that I just said and you want to know more, you can click on this user guide and you can read step by step on how to use this tool to its extent to benefit you and your community. But jumping straight to the multimodal scoping checklist, each of these links is the multimodal scoping checklist that is expected to be filled out by the agencies that are contacted related to the project specific. So if I was the local municipality, I would click on my local planning and government survey, and it would bring up the specific survey for my agency. And I'm going to just minimize these subject or these grouped questions for a second to give you an overview of the type of information that's going to be requested or required for each multimodal scoping checklist from each agency. Each multimodal scoping checklist is comprised of 5 categories. First is the project details. And these are easy questions. We give you the answers because we're just looking for you to fill out the FM number and the project limits that are provided when the email communication is sent out to the agency. The second set of questions is the reviewer information. This is so that we know who's submitting the information. We can easily filter, follow up, more importantly, with that stakeholder to make sure that we have a clear understanding of the information that they've submitted, as well as clarify any questions that may come up. As part of that, we also ask for specific information associated with the actual project review. So for local municipalities, we're getting into details about, what type of planning and transportation studies have been done in the area. What are some known funding projects that are going that could be a cost savings to the cities, but also are there things that we can leverage in regards to timing that's associated with this project corridor as well? We also want to know about different development and redevelopment activities. This is critical. If you design a project based on the existing conditions and are unaware that those existing conditions have plans to be changed in the near future, that can impact project schedule, funding. It's just going to create a bunch of mess. So this, again, is another idea and a way to prompt those discussions early on so they can be accounted for and coordinated with the proper parties prior to that conflict ever coming about. And ADA is obviously something we always want to put as a priority when addressing project location or project improvements or initiating a new project. And this allows for emphasis to be placed and prompts that discussion with our local stakeholders. As I scroll down, you can see there's character limits on each of these. These aren't meant to create additional work for our agencies or to create a dissertation requirement from each of our stakeholders. This is meant to start the conversation. This is meant for them to provide the information that's critical and important to their local stakeholders that they want the department, the FDOT, to know at the very start. And again, this is a collaborative process and it does not replace the overall communication or engagement throughout the project that will continue as the project evolves. And as they move forward, one of the biggest changes that we had as part of this process is the actual option to submit additional information. So you're welcome to continue to go through any of these questions on the multimodal scoping checklist links. But one of the things that we've added, we were getting feedback from our stakeholders where they were essentially regurgitating or copying over a lot of their comp plans or projects and putting that in their responses versus having the ability to just attach or snip a small part of that CIP or capital improvement plan or even multimodal or bicycle and pedestrian master plan that they may have had performed locally. That would be critical for the design PM to know. So what we've allowed now for is the upload of up to 10 actual PDF, PowerPoint, Word documents, Excel. Maybe you have a list of all your project needs or all your sidewalk improvement needs with the beginning and end street locations and the links already in an Excel format you keep locally, well, now you have the ability to share that directly with the design PM. We also have the option to upload photos. You know, pictures worth 1,000 words. And this, because it's online, you have the option to fill this out even on your mobile device. So you can be out in the field, because I'm sure everybody's going to be filling this out while they're walking the streets with a mask on, I hope, and be able to take pictures of maybe those areas that the design PM should know about that maybe are in damage or needing critical attention. You can also upload those if you've taken those photographs on a different date. And when you fill it out, you can provide that information. Again, this is to start that initial conversation with the design PM early on in the stages. So I'm going to flip back to the map, because there's another aspect that I want to point out as another resource to you guys as you fill out, as you explore the modal viewer to your right from your house or from your office, wherever you're at. And that's going to be this incident analysis tool. So we already talked about how to look up specific projects. So I'm going to clear this out. And one of the other icons that are available is this incident analysis tool. So if I click on this, a table is going to appear at the bottom. And this allows me to either place a point on the map, draw a line, draw an area, or clear it completely. But if I draw a point here on the map, it's going to automatically, by default, create a 10-mile buffer around my project location, or this place that I put a point on the map. So we're going to adjust that down to maybe 1 mile. And so that will adjust and give that delay just a second. It's going to refocus that buffer area 1 mile around my project location. There we go. And this also allows me to identify on system, which is on the state highway system or roadway system, those that are off for both bicycle and pedestrian, as well as those that are commercial vehicles, or I can just look at all the crashes on the system all at once. So if I click on all commercial vehicle accidents off the roadway, it's going to give me that complete list around the area, but more importantly, those within my buffer. And I have the ability to download that as a CSV file, which the CSV file can be opened in Excel. And I have a complete inventory now of all the crashes that have occurred within my area of interest. So again, these are tools that are available at your fingertips for not only the multimodal scoping checklist process, but also for helping you plan and evaluate areas within your own community. The other thing I want to point out is we talk about this in a collaborative way. Well, one of the things that we've really been impacted with, everybody, is being able to collaborate physically in the same room, or being able to, you know, head over to somebody's desk and point at the screen and show them information. Well, one of the things that this tool also allows is for all the information that I've turned on, whether it be layers or zoom levels, you also have the ability to share that exact setting with a colleague or with your family. If you get really excited about sharing something about this map with one of your family members, you can also send it to them. Again, public facing. So I point that out because this link is already generated on what my settings are set there. So if I click on link options, it gives you other types of default and customized options for sharing this link as is. So right now it's going to share the link at the current map extent, but I could also set my display to remember the layers that are visible. So if there's only a few layers out of all of the 20 plus layer list options that you have that you're constantly wanting to view, you can even save those for your own use, bookmark this page on your local device or local phone or desktop, and always come back to it with those layers turned on. So again, this is a way for you to use this as a tool, not only for your own planning, but for communicating to other stakeholders within your area and even other departments. And as I click these different options, this link down here changes. As you can see, it modifies based on the selection criteria that I've selected. And then you just copy and paste that and send it in an email. So that's essentially the overview of the multimodal scoping checklist. We've talked about the different layer options that are available, how to navigate through the actual tool, what the stakeholders engaged in the multimodal scoping checklist are being asked, and how they're submitting information to the department, and how that information is being summarized and utilized to make sound and collaborative project decisions at the very beginning of the stage. And what I'd like to do now is open it up for questions, and Wabette and I would be happy to address any questions that may have come up.
Thank you so much, Erin and Mabette. That was a very informative presentation, and I didn't realize how detailed that the modal viewer actually got into. It's quite comprehensive.
Thanks.
But so everybody, if you haven't already, please enter your questions into the question panel. I will be checking them as we get them. I'm just trying to pull this up now. Okay. Our first question is the multimodal scoping checklist a requirement, or is it simply to help get involvement / feedback from the community members and stakeholders?
It's not really a requirement. It's actually to actually get the feedback from the stakeholders, because it's important to provide your opinion and your institution knowledge of your area to the design PM, because if you take into consideration, the design PM are doing multiple projects all over the district, from Broward all the way to Indian River, so they don't know your community like you do. So if you could provide us with the details or information that would not be readily available to the design PM, that's what we're asking for. That's kind of what we're looking for.
So yeah, although it's not required, it's certainly helpful and makes things a lot easier for everybody else.
It is.
And then our next question is there a limit to the total number of locations that can be bookmarked on the multimodal tool?
I haven't been challenged with that question yet. I don't think there is. I'm sure there's an extent to it, but if you're going to bookmark every street, I'd advise not to, because that would probably not help anybody. But I don't know if there's an actual bookmark limit that is set. So if you figure that out, let us know. Or if you're wanting to bookmark more than the default, then let me know what you're doing so I can help you out and find another way.
Let's see. How / where can people from the public identify projects occurring in their area? FM number, etc.
So you can utilize the FM number. You can also use a cross street to identify projects. So if you don't have an FM number, you put in, say, Commercial Boulevard and University. It'll show up the projects within that, close in that area. So it'll give you an idea of what those projects are. And then once you click on it, it'll give you the FM number and the details about the projects.
Perfect.
Yeah, so when we first talked about the search function, the search bar in the top left corner, I had started out with putting an FM number as if I was an agency filling it out. You can easily enter in your street address or enter in any type of address as well, and it will, as Wabette pointed out, bring you to that area within the map, and then you can pan around or zoom to the specific area of interest, and the other projects of the work program will be displayed already on the map.
Perfect. Let's see. Is this already an up and running tool, or is there a future date for opening?
It is live. It is up and running, and we already have agencies. This is actually our first month that agencies have been utilizing the online tool. It's been in beta testing for the last 2 months, and so we are already getting responses coming through with a positive feedback on that in regards to the ease of performing the actual checklist. Yes, thanks for.
Perfect. So yeah, I have the link up on the screen now for anybody who's interested in following the link. Will this be expanded to all of FDOT?
What do you mean FDOT? FDOT District 4 or FDOT the entire state?
All districts.
All districts. So we are not limiting. It's only currently only in District 4. But if any other the district would like to see what we're doing and utilize the tool that we have no problem in sharing. But at this point in time, there is no directive at this point in time to actually put it in any other the districts.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I'll give it another couple minutes, see if we have any stragglers with any questions that weren't answered. In the meantime, I want to speak about Mobility Week for a short amount of time. I'm going to change the screen here. We do have a couple Mobility Week initiatives. We have lovetoride.net/Florida. This is our initiative to get everybody out and biking, and knowing that things are a little limited right now due to COVID as far as driving to and from work and carpooling and vanpooling. This is an opportunity to try an alternate mode of transportation while also staying safe. There are multiple prizes. I think there's 1 of 3 bikes that you can win. There are bike accessories as well as coupons and gift cards for your bike to be worked on. So I would definitely recommend checking this out. You only have to ride for 10 minutes to be entered. It's a very easy process to sign up, and that's lovetoride.net/Florida. And then also, if you haven't already seen our Mobility Week virtual room, definitely go ahead and check it out, mobilityweekfl.com. Here you can see all the districts, different projects, different videos, different things that everybody wanted to showcase to the public. It's a very nice room. It's almost like you're walking in yourself. You can go to the elevators, you can go left, you can go right. It's almost like an animated game, I would say. It's very interesting. I would definitely check this out. And then I will put back on the screen Wabette and Erin's contact information. We don't have any more questions that popped up, but please feel free to reach out to myself, to Wabette, or Erin with any follow-up questions. We'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you again so much for your time, Wabette and Erin. This is an amazing presentation. The tool is absolutely incredible. Everybody enjoy your week. Thank you to all our attendees, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.